Hi, so it's April 2026, and I was preparing for a Northern Housing Consortium session about AI and what's happening in the world and about how that maps to housing. And I thought it'd be nice to share that with everybody, really. So there's three big things that I think are worth knowing about right now in this really fast-paced, changing environment. So the first one is about finance. So the world has really changed very quickly in terms of where investment is going. So you might be aware that Nvidia, who are a chip manufacturer, a computer chip manufacturer, they are the most valuable company in the world now. This morning, their market cap was $4.25 trillion. Huge amounts of investment. The thing that's been happening this year that's different to that trajectory is something that is kind of being called the SaaS-pocalypse. So this software as a service is really struggling in a world where AI can write code. Because what that's meaning is that if you've got, for example, a CRM system that's hooking into other things, it's now much easier to make your own one of those. And so that's threatening some of the business model of these larger providers. We've also got some alliances happening between Microsoft and OpenAI and Google and Anthropic. So some of the big providers of software are now allying with the big AI companies, particularly natural language processing companies, as part of this almost geopolitical struggle for AI supremacy. Part of where this shift is going is away from software as a service to outcome as a service or results as a service. And what this means for housing, this whole context means for housing, is that the procurement of your IT systems has become really, really important, that you do that robustly, that you're mandating APIs so that you can make use of agents and have software interacting with your own software and your data tools, and that you understand that the providers of software are under a lot of pressure so that you're in a very strong negotiating position. The final little point here is about the AI strategy of the vendors is your AI strategy, right? So what the vendors are delivering, what's on their AI roadmap, that's the AI roadmap that you are also buying into. So it's really important that you're asking those questions as part of procurement and certainly as part of any changeovers that you're doing, but it still holds for your existing stack too. The second point is that in other domains, things are moving really fast. And we've also got a shift to physical AI and to world models. And I'll talk a bit about that now. So things like legal, we now have AI running checks on legal reviews to handle exceptions, to do anomaly detection. So that's doing like a bunch of the work that perhaps a paralegal would have been doing before. In medicine, right now we have AI designed drugs running through AI designed trials. So the way that AI is being used at the molecular level for proteins in order to understand how medicines might interact and then to design trials that are going to suit them is really lowering some of the cost of this really expensive funnel in medicine that is to discover new ways of treating human illness. In defense, we've seen swarms. You might be aware that some of the missiles, they're autonomously guided for the last section. There's AI being deployed, particularly computer vision, as part of all of these systems in defense. And these are being used on battlefields all over the world now. And we're starting to see some of that technology, just linking that into housing, we're starting to see some of that being used for doing external surveys. So drones being used to map any defects on structures. But in terms of world models, so these are models that aren't just about text and images. These are about understanding a broader context about what's going on. So they understand things like physics and gravity and sunlight, right? So almost more like a computer game simulation, if you want to think about it like that. And the size of prize there is huge, because that's kind of how autonomous, agentic, robotic models will end up happening. So some of the shift from autonomous vehicles into autonomous agents is sort of the part of the shift that's happening now. And we, in terms of how that will impact housing, is that things like being able to simulate whole communities, and about designing great interventions like different play areas and things like this. What if scenario modeling becomes something that's much more possible, I think, over the next few years. And my final point, which is a really important one, is about interoperability, which I can't even say. But this is about working across silos in your organization. So the Matter protocol has been around for a while, and this is about Internet of Things, so like your smart home devices, and it means that they can talk to each other. In the world of AI, we have these model context protocols, which are essentially servers which are set up to be able to ingest data from different sources. It means that you can swap over your core systems, but your AI doesn't mind. And that's really powerful for being able to transport between different vendors. I think where that maps to housing, and if you've heard me talk before, you'll know that I'll talk about this again, is HAC's UK housing data standards are a really important foundation for housing, because this would allow us to unify our data schemas so that we know that we're all talking about the same thing when we talk about what is a repair. And that will mean that potentially you could even have models that are built across different providers, where we can really do some great things and radically transform and improve our tenant services. But it's garbage in, garbage out. And I think there, the overall, like, this huge shift that's happening, I think I kind of want to map this to utilities now. So if you look at Octopus, so Octopus is an energy provider. It's now the largest energy provider in the UK. It's bigger than Centrica, which owns British Gas. And they have a data platform called Kraken, which essentially runs through all of these energy transactions. What if we had something like that for housing, for our social housing, so that then you could even imagine tenants being able to move landlord without moving home. And that would unlock so much in terms of tenant choice and making sure that we're providing really great services for tenants, but also it's much more efficient. So Octopus is a very efficient provider of energy because it can optimize across that whole data stream. And I guess my message to you, my hope for housing, is that the AI trajectory really would support us in going down that sort of line. There's lots going on. I haven't even talked about the workforce or ethics as part of this, but I think the things which I've spoken about there are some of the key things that are happening really right now.